Hi guys, I'm Soumya and I'm back with another video. So in today's video, I am going to recommend 10 books to you guys that are super amazing to read. And also one special thing about these books is that they are super quick reads. Like these are the kind of books that when you pick them up, you can finish them in a single sitting. Many times our schedule doesn't permit us to read that much. So these are the kind of books that you can pick up and you can finish them quickly and you don't feel like you are getting into a reading slump because these books get over in no time. So if you like bookish content, you should not forget to subscribe to my channel Soumya's Book Station, because on this channel I make loads of bookish content, and if you like this video, do not forget to give this a thumbs up and share it. So before I give my recommendations, I want you to tell me something. Are you a coffee lover or are you a tea lover? I am definitely a tea lover. As you can see, chai is written here, and yes, chai is life for me. So let me know, because I really do think about this a lot, that whether most readers are tea lovers or coffee lovers. My first recommendation is 3000 Stitches by Sudha Murthy. Now it's a collection of 11 stories, but since this book is non-fiction, these 11 stories are events that actually took place. To call this book inspiring would be an understatement. What really amplifies the impact of this book is that it has been written so to the point, and it has been written in such a simple manner that it really enhances the life lessons that this book is so full of. The two main things that I learned from this book is that you should never give up, and also that you should be kind to others. There are many other life lessons. There are stories in this book that really brought tears to my eyes, and while I was reading this book, I was wondering that what took me so long to get to this book. Anyway, this is a book that I really highly recommend that you pick up if you haven't already, because simple stories in this book are going to motivate you in a very powerful way. My next recommendation is The Inscrutable Americans by Anurag Mathur. A lot of you guys asked me for a book that is funny to read. Well, presenting to you The Inscrutable Americans. This is the kind of book that amuses you from time to time, and even if you do not die laughing, you will at least smile while reading this book because of how it has been presented. This is the story of an Indian exchange student named Gopal who goes to America, and unsurprisingly he receives a culture shock there because life in America turns out to be so different for him, and Gopal, to say the least, is very Indian. What makes this book a quick read is that it is just a little over 200 pages long. It has been written in a very simple language, and because the narrative is engaging, it takes you no time to finish this book. So Gopal's English is not exactly proficient, but he's able to get by. So what makes this book funny is the challenges that Gopal faces in America as an Indian student and how those challenges are depicted. A lot of people, when they go to a different country, face challenges and it becomes unpleasant for them. In case of this book, for the most part, these challenges have been shown with a funny twist. My next recommendation is Fierce Fairy Tales and Other Stories to Stir Your Soul by Nikita Gill. Now this is a collection of poems and stories. It consists of retellings of our favorite fairy tales. She has retold these fairy tales in a manner in which the roles of girls have changed. In our quintessential fairy tales like Cinderella, Snow White, we have these princesses, beautiful girls who are waiting for a prince to rescue them. In this book, what she has done is that she has taken these fairy tales that we so love, and she has turned these damsels in distress into strong, independent women, and she has done this job fantastically. The reason that I'm recommending this book is that obviously it is a quick read. You pick this book up and you feel that okay, I am going to read maybe one poem or maybe one story, but you end up turning the pages until you finish this book completely. That is exactly what happened with me. In fact, I shared 2-3 poems from this book on my Instagram as well. I loved them so much, and there were so many other poems and stories that I loved in this book. I just love how she has retold all the fairy tales. I love how she has retold the sides of the villains also. Again, this book is very inspiring. It talks about how you should always believe in yourself. You should never feel alone. You should find strength in your own solitude, and she has done that very effectively. This book did stir my soul, and I am pretty sure that if you pick it up, it will stir your soul as well. So that's why I'm recommending it. My next recommendation is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne. So the story is taking place during the time of the Holocaust, and it has been told from the perspective of a 9-year-old boy named Bruno. So this is the kind of book that when you pick it up, before you know it, it gets over. It's such a quick read and such a glaringly heartbreaking book. So Bruno, being a child, is innocent and he does not realize the reality of Holocaust. He does not realize that he lives in a world where discrimination is taking place, and he also does not realize that he is alive during a time when one of the biggest human tragedies is happening right across his own house. So Bruno's family moves from Berlin to Auschwitz, and there is a fence alongside their new house, and on the other side of the fence there is a concentration camp. But Bruno, being a child, does not know this. In fact, he becomes friends with a little boy in the striped pajamas from across the fence who is one of the prisoners of the camp. Bruno does not know this. They become friends, they meet every day, and since the story has been told from Bruno's perspective, which is largely free of biases and prejudices, you realize just how harsh and just how horrendous the reality was during that time. So this is a very powerful story, and when I say that this story sends a chill down your spine, I'm literally not exaggerating, because that's how it is. My next recommendation is Incredia Leuven of Breda by Sarang Mahajan. So this one is a fantasy thriller, and when you look at the length of this book, it is difficult to believe that it can be a quick read, but trust me, it is. It's a very fast paced story. So it's a story about a 17-year-old boy named Leuven and his 19-year-old sister named Meg. Right from the beginning, a suspense sets in because it is revealed that some dark forces want Leuven dead, but why they want him dead is not revealed. So because of this, Leuven and Meg are always on a run, which makes the story very fast paced. So in their journey, danger is always trailing them, and they meet people who save them from the dangers, at least for the time being. But this book becomes a page turner because your heartbeat keeps getting faster and faster with time, where you are always in a nervous anticipation, wondering whether Leuven and Meg are going to make it or whether they'll end up getting killed. Many unexpected things happen, and this book lives up to its genre, which, as I told you, is a fantasy thriller. It has all the elements of a thriller, and this is the first book in the Incredia series, and I love this book so much that I'm expecting a lot from the second book. My next recommendation is Desire by Haruki Murakami. So this is a collection of short stories, and I'm recommending it because it is a super quick read. It is not even 100 pages long, and this recommendation is especially for those people who want to try a book by Haruki Murakami but they do not know which book to begin with. You can start with this book because it has quintessential Murakami elements, which are basically unusual stories that are open to interpretation, stories that when you read them for the first time, you are left with this feeling of, what did I just read? The mysterious and surreal writing style of Murakami is present all through the book. My next recommendation is Sniper's Eye by Menak Dhar. So this is a military thriller. It's a story of a man named Aditya Ghosh who works in a corporate sector. Now Aditya has a dark past that he wants to forget. So one day he is out on a date with his girlfriend to watch a movie in a mall in Mumbai. So it seems to be a perfectly fine day, except out of nowhere, the man walking in front of Aditya gets shot. Aditya realizes that the shot is a high caliber one which has been fired from a rifle with a suppressor, which means only one thing, that there is a sniper in the vicinity. So Aditya's reflexes tell him to act immediately, which he does, and because of that he is sucked into a dangerous situation. The scale of the story is quite grand. We come across terrorists, we come across people from intelligence bureau, we come across Aditya's dark past, and how all these things come together makes a phenomenal story. This is the kind of story where you feel that as a reader you might have figured out this or that, but you realize that the picture is far bigger than you can imagine. My next recommendation is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Now, I love the title of this book because I feel that I am a wallflower myself. A wallflower is a person who is shy and socially awkward, and I relate to that way too much. So the protagonist of this book, a high school student named Charlie, is a wallflower himself. The story is a collection of many letters that Charlie writes to a person, and he addresses this person as friend. We do not know who this friend is, but every letter starts with dear friend, and then Charlie proceeds to tell about his life, what's going on in his life, about his love life, about his friends and family. It's a quick read because Charlie is such a lovable and an endearing character that you want to know what's going to happen in his story. I personally did not read it very quickly. I savored this book, but it can be read quickly as well. It's a story with a lot of depth, and the main message in the story is that you should always talk to people you love. You should always inquire after them, always ask them how their mental state is, if they're happy, if something is wrong with them, because a lot of times people do not say what is going on in their lives because they're introverted. So if you really love somebody, just keep checking on them. That's the message of the story, which has been conveyed beautifully, to say the least. My next recommendation is Animal Farm by George Orwell. Now this is an allegorical novella, and it is not even 150 pages long, and the engaging writing style ensures that you finish this book in no time. But another thing that this book ensures is that you feel quite depressed because the subject of this book is very harsh and very dark. So the story takes place in a farm called Manor Farm, where all the animals decide that they have had enough with the rule of their human masters, and they decide to overthrow their human masters, and they're are able to do so. So Manor Farm becomes a place which is ruled by animals, and a new society is established where all animals are equal and justice is served. So for the time being, all of this goes very well and all animals are very happy, but as time passes, things start getting corrupted, and what was supposed to be an equal society turns into a fascist society. That how some individuals get corrupted and power hungry, and because of that other people, the civilians, the common people, suffer. This harsh reality has been portrayed through the story of the animals in the Manor Farm. My next recommendation is A Flight of Pigeons by Ruskin Bond. So this is actually based on true events, and it is taking place during the revolt of 1857 in Shahjahanpur. So it's a story of a British girl named Ruth Labadour. So Ruth Labadour's father, who was a clerk in the British magistrate's office, gets killed in an attack by the sepoys, and since the sepoys were hell-bent on killing all the British people, Ruth and her mother and some other members from their family take shelter with a trusted companion, until one day one of the Pathans named Javed Khan finds out about them and he abducts Ruth and her mother. The reason for his abducting them turns out to be that he is in love with Ruth and he wants to marry her. And so this is a story of how Ruth and her mother spend some months in Javed Khan's Haveli, obviously forcibly because he doesn't let them go. Meanwhile, through these months, Javed Khan keeps pressurizing Ruth's mother to let him marry her daughter Ruth, but she does not relent. So the reason that I recommend this story is that it's a very different and a very fascinating story to read, and it is also kind of terrifying, to be honest, because they get abducted, but the story gives you a flavor of the time that was there in 1857, and it kind of gives you an insight into how people used to think during that time, what was the mindsets of people. So these are my 10 recommendations of books that are quick and amazing to read, and you can probably read them in a single sitting if you want to. So that was it for today's video. If you want to connect with me on my social media, the links are in the description. I'll see you in my next video. Till then, bye bye.